I'm a chartered accountant by qualification. My specialization was indirect taxes in particular, and I used to cover both corporate tax, FEMA regulations, inward and outward remittance as such. I quit KPMG, started my own practice. So I've dealt with a large number of startups, period of working as a chartered accountant and rendering service. One thing I used to notice was most of the support functions which we used to render was for a default or non-compliance which entrepreneurs had already done. They have been running businesses for the last 2 years, not covered the basics of taxes. They would have forgotten to file a return. For instance, there is something called a tax-directed source which has to be done. They would have done that, but they would not have filed a very simple return. The penalties can be magnifying if you don't take care of it. So we used to find cases where they ended up paying lakhs together for not just filing something on time, or they totally forgot about filing this particular thing. Or they used to always look for the cheapest accountant available, not to be bothered about what exactly is being complied. They just used to give the work to the accountants and never try to understand what is being complied and what is not being complied. So it's very important that you have an understanding of the laws applicable to your business. Even if you're outsourcing the whole of taxation part to an outside consultant, it's very important to periodically sit with the consultant, understand what is being complied with, what are the due dates, is every return filed, are the taxes paid on time. The taxes are usually based on regulations which are there. Tax can be on people you're employing. If you hire someone, there can be tax to be deducted source before you pay salaries. It can be labor laws around provident fund, ESI, professional tax, which have to be complied once you cross X amount of employees. Few things are there irrespective of the number of employees you cross. And the most important thing we have to keep in mind when you're working on taxes is, irrespective of whether you're a legal entity, not a legal entity, whether you're running pilots, if you're doing certain activities, there would be a tax implication, and it's always better to understand that first and foremost before you start something. Non-compliance with tax might result in simple penalties to severe penalties. Contravention in law can be punishable offences where it can result in imprisonment. For instance, if you don't comply with labor laws, let's take a situation where you have more than 20 employees. The provident fund is a mandatory thing, and if you don't comply with this is a punishable offence. It's also a non-bailable offence. Taxes which are applicable to your business, if you don't provide for it in the business model, your margins can take a hit. For instance, whatever your service you're rendering, you have to understand whether service tax is applicable, whether there is a VAT applicable on this. Is it both VAT and service tax applicable in certain situations where there is something called as composition tax which gets applicable for a business. If you don't understand the taxes properly, your margins will take a hit because the tax authorities will come back on a later date and you will have to pay taxes retrospectively. Taxation plays a very important role when you're starting on your own. You should have a thorough understanding of taxes applicable to your business in particular, and also the general taxes which you are required to comply because you're starting a business. You can't seek shelter saying that you are ignorant of law. The laws don't have any relaxation just because you did not know the law. So it's better to seek advice. You consult the right experts. You have to keep in mind is when you're seeking for guidance, you have to open up the business model to your experts so that they have a thorough understanding of how the transaction flow is happening, so that they also can give you a right guidance on that. Your agreements with the experts, then explaining them the model so that they can give you proper suggestions on it. Like medicine, you should not try to do something on your own just by reading some blogs or trying to have your own understanding of the law. It's always good to understand, have a thorough understanding of taxation, but it should always come from the right set of people.